Okay, we're going to proceed with the next step, which is to generate some layers. So I'm in the file that I had started previously. And one thing that I didn't mention last time is that we should save the file. It's not going to auto save like some other software does. I have to go to the menu browser and find save. I can also type in save at the command line. Okay. I would recommend, and it'll ask me, do I want to save as, and I can overwrite the same file. That's okay too. Yes. I would recommend every 15 minutes or so to get in the habit of saving, just to save yourself from having to redo work. If for some reason your connection to the internet, fails or something like that, you want to make sure that you're regularly keeping an updated version of the file that you're working on. All right, now I'm going to close AutoCAD, or I'm going to close the file. So this closes AutoCAD, this closes the file. I'm going to close this for a minute, and I'm going to go to one of these templates that's here. You don't need to do this. That one won't open. Let's see if these other ones open. Yes, okay. So it allowed me to open this. And what we see in this file is this is a partial plan that shows a bathroom and some mechanical spaces in this right now. Similar to the file that we were working on previously, there's model space and there is a layout. This one only has one layout. So the layout number 2 was deleted, or it was not part of the template. That if I go into model space and I zoom in here, I can start to see some of these elements that are appearing in the viewports. Now remember, the viewports in a file are, okay, so this one, you can see it has at least 4 viewports, okay? When I click here, they're becoming visible. When I click over here, I'm in the paper. Right. But the reason that I wanted to take a look at this file is so we could start talking a little bit about layers. So I'm still on the Home tab here, and you'll see a panel that's called Layers. And when I click on this, that's called Layer Properties, I'll get a table. But before we do that, what this is saying is that my current layer is layer number 2, and that layer has been assigned color magenta. So I'm going to click on the layer properties now, and you will see there is a very long list of layers in here. Okay. A lot of them start with an A and a hyphen, and those tend to be dedicated to architectural items. We have some C layers. Sometimes this is for civil engineering types of objects. We can kind of isolate those if we needed to. And then you'll see there's a number of other layers. Now, personally, I would prefer to maintain this kind of designation at the beginning of a layer to sort of distinguish between certain kinds of objects, because that makes it really easy to turn them on and off. So let's see here. If I scroll down here, let's move towards the bottom. There's some trees and text and stair layers. I'm not really sure why those aren't on architectural layers, some of them, but maybe like the trees could be on a non-architectural layer, like a civil layer or something like that. Okay, so let's go back up to the architectural layers here. And I want to see what happens when I start to turn on some of these layers. You'll note, okay, so this one here, STR, and let's take this and let's just expand it a little bit. Stair dashed is probably what that's for. Now watch the screen when I click on it. You'll see that some layers are being turned on and off, okay? There's also the possibility of freezing, which is a slightly, for lack of a better way of describing it quickly, a deeper way to turn things off. Right, so I could, if I wanted to, for one particular drawing, go and turn off a bunch of layers and leave another bunch of layers on. Let's go down here and see if some of the layers come off when I go down to these stair layers. Stair, yeah, they're starting to, nothing on these ones. Okay, anyway, that's one thing that you need to be able to do, is to take a layer, turn it on, turn it off. I can turn all of them on and off quickly by highlighting a bunch of them. So I'm holding the Shift key and I am turning those on. Hold the Shift key and then click on one of those little light bulbs and you can turn them on. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and close this and reopen. I don't want to save this thing, and reopen the file that I had started. It's one called title block. All right, so here is my layer table, my layer. I'm going to click on the layer properties to bring this up. And right now, there's only one layer. It's this layer 0. And it is shown as black here. If I was to go to model space, you can see that's the only color that transitions when you move from model to layout, this color white. So if I go back to layout, you can see it says white, but it's actually a black so that you can actually see it on the screen. Right. Generally speaking, layer 0 has some special properties that we'll start talking about in the upcoming classes, but for the time being, we're going to focus on building objects that are not on layer 0. We're going to create new layers. The new layer tool is right here. So if you click on that, you'll see that it's going to default to layer number 1. And from here, I can go and change the name of the layer and change some of the other settings that are associated with it. All right, and I'm going to call this G-sheet. Okay, they can be all caps or lowercase and caps. I would just try to be somewhat consistent about it. Okay, now each time I create a new layer, it's going to adopt the color and the settings of the one that was ahead of it. So I want to make a change here. I'm going to click on the color box here. So for the most part, we will only be using this row of colors down here. Now, as you can see, there's a lot more colors available, but and we'll get into a little bit more of this later. These ones are going to, even though they look like their color on the screen, they'll be printing in black and white. And that would be typical for architectural drawings that you print out. Sometimes you use color, but most of the time they're black and white drawings. The reason that we use these colors is so that you can look at the screen and know, oh, that's on this layer, etc. And unlike that example that I just showed you, we are not going to have nearly as many layers. So we can have a very simple set of colors that we associate with our layers. We're going to choose the magenta color for our new layer that's called G-sheet. So this is magenta. You can see it's populated that name down here. Magenta is also color number 6. Okay, so I'll hit OK. And I'm going to create a few more layers. I won't go through this through the video, but I'll go ahead and generate them. And you can find more details about this in the assignment description. But I'll be using the same process of clicking on the new layer and then making, renaming it and giving it the color that I've listed out in the assignment. And keep in mind that if you've got a layer that's already there and you want to change it, you just double click on it and you'll be able to sort of edit that layer name. Or rather, you're going to right click on it and rename it, and that will permit you to give it its new name. Okay, so I have the 3 layer names created, but the colors are the same for all of them. And as I was describing that we would, our process for choosing colors for layers, that we're only going to use these ones, I'm already going to make an exception for this. Why? Because I'm going to be using 2 of these layers will not print. One of them is going to be the sheet layer, and the reason it won't print is because it is going to be the very edges of the sheet. Okay, so let's put spotlight here so you can kind of see where I am. So if I drew a line at the edges of the sheet, when I print it to paper, the printer would not print a line at the very edge of the sheet. So this one G sheet, which is going to be that border, won't print. So it doesn't really matter what color I make it. So what I'd like for you to do is click on that layer. Hold on a second. So I have the color selection panel here, and I'm just going to pick a color that I would like to assign to that one. And again, these are exceptions. Typically, if it's an object that's in the model space, we want to make sure it prints properly. So we would be more careful about that. And the same thing goes for this G-port layer. I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to choose a color for it. The color you choose for these two layers is up to you. This one, this G text needs to be magenta. Okay, so here we have them, and I'm going to expand this window a little bit here. Let's see, can I stretch it? There we go. Okay, the G sheet is going to print, but the G viewport will not print. This row right here, or rather this column, indicates whether a layer will print or not. So if I click on this, you can see there's a little red circle with a white horizontal kind of dash across the middle. That's telling me that this layer will not print. Now, I may be able to see it on the screen, but when I send it to the printer, it's not going to print. Okay, one thing that you'll notice, this green check mark indicates what the current layer is. So that means that anything I draw on G viewport, anything I start drawing, it's going to be on that layer, okay, which means that it won't print. So again, you want to be a little careful about what layer you currently have, right? I can double click on a layer. So double clicking on it allows you to make that the current layer. See the green check mark? That would indicate that that's the current layer. Right now I can go ahead and close this, this layer properties box. So what you should see is that your whatever color you chose is showing here for G sheet, and that is the current layer. So I can start drawing, and everything I draw will be on that G sheet layer. You can always come back and change the layer of something, but sometimes it's easier from the very beginning to just get that stuff all set up. Now, again, it's important to save. So I'm going to go ahead and go up here and hit save. Okay, so now I should have wherever I've saved it, whether in the documents folder or on the desktop, the most current version of this. And if I was to exit, I could open it and be at the same spot.